All right, welcome back, everybody. It's a different type of video today. We're going to be doing a PB rundown. I have not watched this yet. This is something I watch at the beginning of every patch, PvP, or PB, sorry. It's something that I love, actually. I really enjoy that Mort Dog does this. He might be not doing them any longer for this set because he has stepped away to work on another project and assist them for set 15. So I believe we're going to be mostly dealing with Sloan here that's on the left. I think he's the lead designer for set 15. And then Mort Dog is on the right, and he's like the head of TFT as a whole. But like I said, I think he's going to a different project for a little bit. That being said, we're going to jump into this. If you do enjoy my content and you're excited for this next set, please give this video a thumbs up. If you don't like me at all, give it a thumbs down. That's fine. And if you have not done so already, please consider subscribing. I'm going to be running 2 accounts on the PBE, or sorry, on the next set. PBE, I'm going to be doing a lot of wacky builds, but we're going to be playing 2 accounts, one just for fun, one more serious for climbing. And yeah, that being said, let's get into it.
Shall we just dive right in? Because we have a lot to go over.
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
All right, sweet. First off, as a new set, we have new champions. And as always, I try to organize these so that you've got the tanks first. The tanks being Rel, Garen, Malphite, Zac, Aatrox, and Kennen. And then you've got your damage dealers, Sivir, Lucian, Callista, Gnar, Kayle, Syndra, Naafiri, and Ezreal. Sloan, anything you want to talk about?
So a couple here I want to call out. If you liked the scaling Kayle that we had a while ago, I believe set 9, Kayle is back as a Wraith duelist. You do get that scaling fantasy, so you've got some fun reroll comps you can do with Kayle. Gnar is also very fun. He's got a built-in attack speed scaler every time he attacks and hits the same target again. He attacks faster and faster and faster until he resets targets. So even if you have no items on him, he's a fun unit to watch pop off early game. And Kennen's just fun if you like front lines that stun people. He does the like slam into the ground, stun the 2 nearest enemies, and deal some damage to them. So if you can make a durable Kennen, you can get a lot of stuns going. And there's some fun builds with that.
Nice. If you're looking for powerful champions, if you want to win your first game of PvE, Naafiri is going to be really good for win streaking for reasons we'll talk about later. Melee champions are particularly good in the early game. And then Malphite's also got some pretty cool armor scaling, so you can check that out. But yeah, those are kind of our one costs. And we know Sloan is blocking Ezreal here, who is a Battle Academia prodigy. Yeah, so sorry about that. We checked all the other slides. He's not blocking much else other than Augment Slater. But yeah, so there you go. Ezreal is a Battle Academia prodigy, if you're curious. So
I did like that when you said that. I tried to lean as if
it was going to move. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. On the 2-cost side, we have...
One thing I want to add that they showed at the end of Worlds there when they're breaking down the set is they're doing, in case they don't bring it up here, they might not. They have an hour window that they have to get everything into. They're doing something called, I think it's called like Role Revamped. And with that, they were talking about how your 1 cost and your 2 costs, like, like some people are just like a stat bot right now. Like they don't really do anything. Like you feel bad playing them, but they're like part of your comp and you need them for the stat. And you're just like, oh, they're super underwhelming to play. You don't even put items on them, you just like leave them there and they're just garbage, they die immediately. They're trying to get away from that in this set and future sets. What they're doing is they're actually taking more time in class design to make them more impactful. So even though you might have like a 1 cost unit on your board, either the mechanic's going to look cooler or it's going to be more in line with the trait it's supposed to be. Like it won't just fold immediately. It's supposed to be more impactful as a unit, which will give you more playable lines. So it's not like, oh, let's just get through all these crap units, hold them as placeholders, and then get to our 4 costs and blow up the board. It's going to be more like, hey, we might want to hold this 1 cost because his ability is actually really strong early and can run up until late game, and we'll use him as a stat bot still. But we need that ability in our comp as well, right? They're trying to lean heavily into making sure that each individual unit does what their intent is. I'm really excited for this set for that reason.
Kobuko, that's right. Couldn't have a Sloan set without Kobuko. Xin Zhao, Rakan, Shen, Mundo, and Vi are your tanks. And then Katarina, Kai'Sa, Gangplank, Xayah, Janna, Lux, and Jhin are going to be your damage dealers. Sloan, what are the highlights here?
So Kai'Sa is a very fun reroll carry. She's got infinite scaling, so if you get takedowns, you get AD, you're going to be shooting a lot of missiles that deal a lot of damage. Gangplank, on kill, has a chance to generate gold, and if you build him right, you can make that pretty reliable and just use an early Gangplank 2 as an econ engine. I think those are 2 of my favorites. I always like Kobuko. That's a pretty simple spell, but because of the mentor trait, he's got a little surprise in store that we'll get to later.
Yeah.
How about you, Mort?
I agree. You actually picked the 2 callouts I was going to go with. Kai'Sa, definitely we've seen her pop off in playtest pretty heavily. She's that infinite scaler. Gangplank, I love getting a Gangplank out of an orb. You're going to see me on streams try to play Gangplank early as often as I can. And then generally, I just find Shen to actually be kind of like really flexible with like Bastion, pairs well with some early edgelords. I just find him to be generally like Shen himself's not that exciting, but the traits tend to make a pretty good comp. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very nice anchor for edgelord.
Yeah, I think the only other one worth talking about might be Jin, just because he's one of those monolith champions again, with that really strong fourth shot. So, yeah. Cool.
There was another unit there on the 2 cost, Janna. I want to mention Janna because if you ever played set 11, Janna's a support unit, so she'll be given a shield to her 2 nearest allies. It might be the lowest HP, I'd have to double check. And then she'll also projectile 2 missiles to her 2 nearest enemies, right? So she'll shield your allies and then at the same time give missiles out for damage. So if you guys remember set 11, like there's like a Rage Blade build with like Janna you do where she's hyper casting these shields out and you 3-star her. There's actually supports in this game, so that's something to look forward to. Janna might be one of those units that I'm gonna probably play around and try to make a hyper creative, like Rage Blade, Nash's Tooth plus 1 other attack speed item, and make her getting those rapid shields out to keep my front line up while at the same time doing damage. Anyways, let's keep going here.
All right, on the 3-cost side, we have Swain and Udyr as the tanks. There are not a lot of 3-cost tanks in this set. It's mostly just those 2. And then on the damage dealer side, there's a lot of options here. We have Viego, Malzahar, Senna, Darius, Caitlyn, Nico. Oh, sorry, Nico's a tank. Aha, I got that wrong. So there's 3 tanks. Caitlyn, Yasuo, Ari, Jace, and Ziggs. Any highlights here?
So 2 things. On the tank issue, we'll see later, there's some changes that mean some of these characters, like Darius and Jace, you can use as frontline, or
True.
you can use significantly more as damage dealers.
True.
So it's a little bit of an interesting mix. My favorites here, Ziggs has a really fun auto attack that actually bounces in a line towards his target and can be intercepted by someone in front of them. So it's a delightful effect. Deals a lot of damage, but it's just a novel attack frame we've seen. The classic Malzahar is back. People love classic Malzahar.
Yes.
And I'm also a fan of Ari. You get to blow a kiss at a target, deals a lot of damage, and if it kills them, it explodes into hearts that damage other enemies. It's just like a really nice, juicy spell effect that's just really satisfying to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, Malzahar being back definitely makes me happy. I think Viego's another one that if you get out of an orb, again, that early melee champion, for reasons we'll talk about in a second, can do a lot of power here. Viego's pretty cool. And then Darius, if you you like the classic dunking Darius, is back, but with the changes that the set brings, I think is a pretty interesting version of that. So, yeah.
You won't get stuck on frontline as much.
True. That's okay. I guess we can't really talk about it yet till we get to that part, but it is cool how remind us to talk about that because that's a cool part of Darius.
I'll try. We'll put a pin in that for later.
Yeah.
They'll probably forget.
All right. Okay, one more 3-cost because if you notice, we were a little short here. There's one more 3-cost that's pretty interesting, which is Lulu. Now, Lulu is a monster trainer, and when you buy her and you put her on your board, you will be presented a choice. You'll have a choice between Kog'Maw, Smolder, and for some reason, because we snuck this in, I guess Malzahar was the trade-off here.
Malzahar made up for this.
Yeah, but Rammus being the third. So, Sloan, tell us about these 3.
All right. So each one of these fills a different role. Previously, when we've done this sort of character selection where you can do like, oh, what spell does Sona cast? They've all filled similar roles. Here, Rammus is a frontline tank who's got some crowd control. Smolder is a backline AD unit who's going to deal single target damage and spread a burn around. And Kog'Maw is going to fire a lot of rapid attacks and just arc lightning between enemies, and is going to be an AP attack speed carry. So depending on your itemization and the needs of your team, you have a lot of different ways you can go about it. And the more you field them and the more takedowns you get and the more combats you fight, the more experience you earn. And at different breakpoints in experience, your monster abilities level up. So by the end of the game, Rammus can become an almost impossible to kill tank, and Smolder and Kog'Maw are both capable of dealing surprising amounts of damage.
Yeah, that's the big thing, I think. When people look at this, they're like, oh, so you brought back threats. And it's like, well, not quite. These aren't just threats because, like you said, Monster Trainer provides them their own EXP, essentially, as they participate and fight and get kills. And so as they level up, they enhance as well. So you have your star level, but you've also got your XP. Like, I believe Rammus gets more armor and MR per XP.
Yep.
Yeah, and like Kog'Maw, I think it's more AP, and Smolder, I think more AD or attack speed. I can't remember.
More attack speed, I believe.
Gotcha. Yeah. So
And all of them do bring a utility. So if you don't get them early and you don't have a ton of XP, you can still field them for that utility, because Smolder will give you Burn Wound, Rammus will give you a stun, and Kog'Maw will give you Shred and Soul.
Oh, that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool how they have that. I think Lulu's going to be a popular champion that can fit in comps that have some extra slots. But yeah, so
Yeah, I'm gonna
Monster
play
Trader
the
games are
crap
pretty
out of
fun.
Lulu.
Sweet. All right, on the forecast side, tanks wise, we have, and we're sticking with the 13 from previous sets. By the way, we like the extra forecast here. But so we've got Poppy, Leona, Cassante, Set, and Jarvan. Now this is one more tank than normal at forecast. Normally we do 4 tanks, but this is going to be 5, so there'll be a little bit more options at forecast than normal. On the carry side, we've got Ashe, Jinx, Karma, Ryze, Akali, Yumi, Samira, and Volibear. Any you want to talk about here?
Yeah, I think I'll start with one that I think a lot of people remember fondly, or possibly fear. It's kind of a little bit of both. This is the Akali that we last saw in set 10 for KDA.
Yeah.
That's going to tear into backlines.
I was about to say, you say remember fondly. I'm not so sure I agree with that one.
You guys played the set 10 revival. You guys will know how devastating that Akali is going to be.
That's why I added or fear. But I think one that deserves a specific call out for me is Karma. This is a new skin that we made for TFT. This is Mighty Mech Karma. And her spell is she will spin the disc on her back and send it into the nearest enemy, where it will spin, dealing damage to everyone nearby. And if it kills them, it'll move on to new targets. And unusually for a spell like this, it doesn't just deal damage in an area. It has a set amount of damage it will deal, and vanishes only when it's done that much damage. So if you're just hitting one person, it'll just deal a ton of damage to them rather than like distributing it among everyone hit. Volibear is also really fun. This is a fast attacking unit. When he casts, he just starts attacking really quickly and gains some bonus stats. And every time he switches targets, he'll jump to the new target and deal an AoE of damage around them. And it's just really fun to see Volibear jumping all over the battlefield.
Nice. I think the one I want to talk about, actually, there's 2. The first one's kind of obvious. You know how every set we have our 4-cost AoE CC. Jarvan's going to be that champion that you're going to be excited for. Jarvan's going to be that jump to the back, do that big AoE stun. So Jarvan's going to be pretty powerful. But the other one here is Cassante. Cassante is really interesting.
I thought you'd want to talk about
that. Yeah, I want to talk about Cassante, because Cassante is a tank, but he's a weird tank in that he starts off as a tank with a spell that kind of is like, frankly, it's like a reprint of the 1-cost Cassante spell. It's not a very exciting spell. He just be's tanky for a while, and then he punches back. But when his health reaches 0, instead of dying, he essentially goes back to full health and switches modes, and now he's a damage dealer. So he has this like last little last stand. So you can actually itemize him with things like Titan's Resolve or BT or something like that, and he can come back as a second wind a lot stronger and actually like get a couple kills. And just the fact he has 2 health bars makes him surprisingly tanky.
The other one I'll mention, now that I think of it, is Set. Set is a tank. I know a lot of people are like, I want to see a brawler Set. Where's my brawler Set? You do have a way to play that, because Set spell is a punch that heals him and then a big punch through his target. And the big punch through his target doesn't deal a ton of damage until you realize that it deals more damage based on how much he's healed that combat. So if you get a set that has healing and is durable enough, you can end fights punching through people and live out that Set fantasy you want to.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool one. Sweet. There's others I'd love to talk about here, like Ryze and Yumi, but Ryze we can't talk about until we talk about Mentor anyway, so there's some cool 4-costs in here. Cool. All right, and then we have the 5-costs. Now,
let's
so that
go.
we don't spend forever talking about the 5-costs, because each of these are pretty unique, I'm going to try to talk about some highlights, and then you can dig in deeper of anything you think is worth calling out here.
Sounds good.
Gwen's pretty standard. Gwen's like a 2-range sorcerer, does a lot of AP damage. Nothing too crazy going on with Gwen. Zyra is like almost like a really unique threat because she's got, with Rose Mother, she's going to have a plant that you can put in the front line or back line that changes function based on where you put that plant. And her spell provides your team a ton of attack speed. So she's a really good utility 5-cost that you can put in any comp. Seraphine is a big damage dealer. Her spell's really exciting, But the really interesting thing about Seraphine is her spell scales with every single stat your team has. So you can itemize her basically any way. You probably want like a jeweled gauntlet so the spell can crit. Other than that, like itemized to your heart's content. There's going to be some weird builds where, and I'm going to get roasted for this later, but like you can even put Warmogs on Seraphine and it scales her
Radiant
damage.
Warmog Seraphine might cook.
Yeah, so there are some alternative versions here, but it scales with every stat. Varus is a pretty interesting AD sniper, fires his bullets, but the cool thing about him is as he's casting, it's essentially a channel. And so, like, if you have Shojin, it'll guarantee, like, he'll generate mana while he's channeling, because he'll channel as long as his mana can keep up. So if you have, like, higher attack speed or Shojin or something like that, he can channel for longer. But if you have pure AD, it hits harder, which is kind of interesting. Braum is a lot. Braum is going to be a popular one. He is not a tank. He is a damage dealer. He's a fighter. He's a wrestler. You're going to put AD items on this guy. But in addition, like his spell can knock people out. He's kind of that KO that some of you dread, some of you are not going to enjoy, but others are going to be like, yeah. But the other thing is he's got this champ property where every time he wins fights, he gains Poro fans. And when you take damage, those Poro fans can block some of that damage for you. And so you can actually get kind of like a last stand effect going if you got the champ early. Twisted Fate, pretty cool. He uses his cards as like a cool auto attack mechanic. And then the longer you play him, you actually get rewards based on that deck of card. That's what Rogue Captain does. Yone is a pretty standard auto attacker, but he ramps up. So the longer you can keep him alive, he's one of those ones that's going to pop off on fights pretty heavily. If you can keep them alive. 2-star Yones are very, very scary. And then finally Lee Sin. And I should have put it on the slide, but Lee Sin is interesting in that when you put him in, there's actually 3 versions, and it changes which class he is. Sloan, what are the 3 classes? It's Duelist, Executioner,
and Juggernaut.
And Juggernaut, right. So you get to pick which class he is and can sync with that. And each one is a different spell that synergizes with different items. So that's the quick rundown here, so we don't spend an hour talking about each of these. Anything you want to add?
2 things. You covered almost all of it. But I'll add to Varus's channel, he does gain mana back when allies or enemies die. So if he's killing people during that channel, you can keep it going even longer.
Yep.
And the other thing I'll mention about Twisted Fate is, in addition to giving you rewards of various types the longer you play him, Rogue Captain also serves as a capstone bonus to one of the origins we're about to talk about.
Yep.
I'll talk about a little more there, but if you feel Twisted Fate in this origin, you get an extra bonus on top of it.
True. And that is one of the cooler traits. So cool. And there's our champions. So a lot of cool, unique stuff here.
One thing I don't think I heard them talk about with Braum is, so Braum, if you played set 9 or 9.5, forget which one it was, there is a Cassante 5 cost that he would knock people into the wall. Then when he cast again, because he'd run at them, if he cast again when they're pinned up against the wall, he would knock them out of the map. Braum is going to have a built-in mechanic like that. Braum will attack somebody. Doesn't matter if they're a 3-star or not. Once they get below a certain health percentage, if he's still attacking them and he ults, he'll knock them out of the map. I think it's like 18% right now. I think that scales up with AP. So you're going to have people that are building Braums. Your position is going to be a little bit weird. Like if you have a really strong 3-star tank, you don't want to put them near Braum, because when Braum starts to beat on them, when they hit that break point, whatever the percentage of AP they have scaling on him, he will knock them out of the screen, from what I've read.
Great. So with that, let's dive into traits, shall we?
Absolutely.
All right. On the trait side, first up, we have Star Guardian. Now, Star Guardian is a really interesting... Complicated is not the right word, but it's definitely one of those. It's going to be the hardest to, I think, get the balance right. Good luck, guys. And but basically the way Star Guardian works is it's kind of like Guild in the sense that you can play any amount of them. I believe it starts at 3. I think
It starts at 2.
Oh, it starts at 2, but it doesn't apply to the team. It only applies to the Star Guardians. So if you're only playing 2, you're only going to get those 2 bonuses to those 2 characters. But what bonus you get depends on which character you're playing. So, for example, if you're playing Rel, all the Star Guardians gain a starting shield, which is essentially health. If you're playing Syndra, all the Star Guardians will gain ability power. And so, once you have them all in, you actually have this trait that's like gain some shields and AP and magic damage on attack and on cast gain mana. And so like it does a ton of things. But if you're like, ooh, I just don't really need that heal at low health, you can cut Poppy from the comp and pick a different trait. And so there's a bunch of cool combinations here. But like I said, I do. It's going to be a hard one to balance. We'll see how this one goes.
This one, guys, just think of the current Divinicorp. It's went by names Guild in the past. In set 11, it was Heavenly. In set 11, a big thing was you get an emblem and you put on a 4-star carry. So like right now we have Zed. Back then it was Kane. So you're going to see people trying to experiment with Star Guardians. It's going to be like Divinicorp, but they're going to get an emblem. They're going to put down a very powerful forecast. Look out for that in the PBE and possibly in rank climbing.
Yeah, some days I'm glad I'm not on the balance team. I'll also make a call out here that while this tooltip looks like it just doesn't give you a lot of information, whenever you field a champion, that particular part of the tooltip will update with the full benefit you're getting and what its current value is. So as you field more, that'll increase, and you'll see Rel goes from 120 shield to 140 shield, or whatever the number happens to be.
Yep. Cool. You want to talk about Mighty Mech?
Sure. So you always need a summon trait. And in an anime set, we have to summon a giant robot.
True.
So Mighty Mech, you gain the Mighty Mech. It's a big, beefy frontline brawler, and your Mighty Mech units heal it for a portion of the damage they deal, which helps it stay alive longer. And then as you level it up, it becomes stronger and stronger and a little bit more of a carry. So at 5, you get Blade Protocol and you get a big sword. Your attacks are going to deal some damage in an AoE, and your spell's going to change from a shield and a punch to a shield and a big swipe that damages a bunch of people. And then at Blade Protocol level 2, you're going to empower that blade even more. You're going to get even stronger and more aggressive, and the spell's going to add a really big slam that'll hit in a line through its primary target and deal extra damage in the back line. This thing can get pretty scary. We've seen some pretty terrifying ones out there.
Yep. Cool. Yep. Pretty good vertical.
With Mighty Mech, guys, I'd want to like say one thing. It's kind of, think of it like Eldritch in the current in set 11, if you did play that, where your star units of the players you're putting out will give it strength. So I'm a big like summon, like I play all summon like classes. Like I probably played the most Eldritch. I definitely probably played the most Nitro comps like out of anyone in set 14. I absolutely love summon traits, even if they're not like in the meta. So when you 3-star these units, you're gonna want to be rolling and 3-starring these, because that's gonna make your Mighty Mech stronger, as we can see outlined right here. Now it doesn't say unique. That was the problem with Nitro this set, is that you couldn't play 2 kindreds. But Eldritch in the past, I don't know which unit this is. Say you had 2 of these units and they're both 3-starred because you got like a worth the wait or something. Both of those 3-star units should add to your Mighty Mech's power if they're both played at the same time. So if you have 2 3-stars of one unit, they'll add value to the Mighty Mech. That's how it worked with Eldritch. I know in Nitro is unique, but this can make for some very fun boards. We have like a 4-star and like your Mighty Mech just can be OP.
All right, next up is Battle Academia. Now, for those of you that remember, why am I blanking on the AMP? Yeah, Battle Academia is kind of like AMP, where they're going to have different potential, and it's going to scale up their abilities in different ways. So it's kind of cool for us to reuse this mechanic a little bit, but they do scale in very different ways each time now. I think we got even better at how to use this mechanic. So for example, like Garen, every time he casts his spell, he gets a stack of, I believe it's called Heroism? What do we call it?
I think so.
Yeah, and
we might have changed the name. Last I remember, it was Heroism.
And then, so basically, for the stacks of Heroism, like let's say you have 20 stacks of Heroism, he gains health multiplied by the potential. And so he's like a perma-stacking health that the more Battle Academia you play, the better you're benefiting from that stacking health. Or Caitlyn, for example, her ult is her big sniper shot, which then will like bounce to 1 or 2 more targets. And then if you've got more Battle Academia, it's going to bounce to even more targets. And so there's a bunch of cool multipliers here, but basically Battle Academia is going to upgrade all of their abilities. It's a pretty easy to play vertical.
Yep. And one call out here is when it upgrades, it's always a new thing that it adds. So like Ezreal doesn't normally have scaling every time he casts.
Yep.
But then he gains it, and that's the portion that upgrades. So if you're familiar with AMP, where the spell just got better in the things that it already did, for almost all of these, the spell does a new thing that then gets stronger.
Yep. Sweet. All right, you want to talk about Soul Fighter?
Yeah. Soul Fighter is pretty straightforward. You gain health and attack, damage, and ability power every few seconds up until 8 stacks. And then at maximum stacks, a portion of all damage you deal is dealt as bonus true damage. So you can get some pretty big numbers here. You can punch through a lot of defenses. But overall, this is a pretty straightforward. If you want power and you want durability, Soul Fighter will get you both of those.
Yep. It's interesting. I think like Battle Academia and Soul Fighter are kind of like the easier to play verticals here. And hilariously enough, Star Guardian is the one I think that's actually a little bit more advanced of these ones. So that'll be an interesting change because usually Star Guardian is the easier to play one. So we'll see. All right. Continuing on. All right. You want to talk about the crew? Because the crew is definitely one of my,
I would love to.
Yeah, the crew's pretty sweet.
So the crew is one of the strangest trait structures we've done in a while. When you field crew champions, starting at 2, you gain health and attack speed for each crew member fielded. And that's it. There's no additional breakpoints there because you achieve breakpoints based on the number of 3-star crew units you have.
Oh, heck yeah.
When you have 1 3-star crew champion, you gain XP every time you reroll, and crew unit odds don't drop with player level. What this means is that your odds of hitting the 1-cost Sivir and Malphite don't go down when you're level 6 or 7 or 8, unlike normal 1-cost odds. So you can kind of level while playing the crew and still have a decent chance of hitting your units. When you have 2 3-stars, you gain 1 free reroll every round. And then when you have 3 or more, you summon the ship in combat.
Yeah.
I don't know how this was legal by the tournament rules, but no one told them no. And when you have the ship, every time you deal a certain amount of damage, you'll fire a rocket that deals magic damage to a target. And then at 4 3-star units, your rockets fire faster for every player level that you have. So if you manage to hit level 10, you're going to be seeing a lot of rockets. And then if you 3-star 5 crew units, and this includes Twisted Fate, something very fun happens. Yes. I'm not going to tell you what, but if you 3-star all of them in a 5-cost, you deserve the prize you get. Now, so someone hit that and put it up on YouTube.
Well, I was going to say, Sloan, now if we've learned anything, this is probably already almost on YouTube by now. Like someone has probably recorded it from like the influencer playtest, and like these things get posted to YouTube so fast. So if you really want to see, check it out. But I think the team really outdid themselves if you can manage to fire the Planet Cracker. It's a doozy. So cool.
And Mort, do you want to explain Crystal Gambit? Because
yeah,
this one's complicated.
It's a little complicated, but the short end here is this is our high risk trait. And if you're familiar with Heartsteel, it's a lot like Heartsteel. Basically, you play the trait, and you have your first activation point where you're going to gain some gems based on getting kills. And if you lose, you'll get a few more gems. And then after 4 player combats, you can convert those into rewards, or you can double down. And then while you double down, you have that high risk. So like I said, at the 3-piece, it's basically Heartsteel. Now, the difference here, though, there is a big key difference. Heartsteel, to really benefit from, you had to play like 5 and 7. That's not the case this time. The way this works is at 5, you're actually sort of incentivized to start getting kills. And because we wanted it to be a viable vertical that isn't just about getting loot. And so at 5, you start getting kills and start getting rewards. Kind of like, for those of you that played Into the Arcane, it's almost like Family Heist 5, where it's like you get rewards based on kills from there. And then if you somehow can get 7, this is where the rewards start really coming in, and you get even some extra health and some damage amp, so that really takes off as a vertical. So at its core, it's Heartsteel, but it caps out a lot differently. And then who knows, maybe there's some stuff beyond that. But yeah, some good stuff. I mean, all of our cash out traits, we generally get pretty creative with some of the stuff you can find near the end. So
I am excited to see the players who really figure out how to play on the edge at that 5-piece and get all the loss value and almost all the kill value.
Yeah.
I think there's some really high things you can reach with this.
Yep. Yeah. So
I'll try not to interrupt too much, but okay, so that's your chase trait, and I've played a lot of the chase traits in like the econ traits and all the sets. My concern with this is, so if you're going to double down and you're getting your 2 per kill, 22 per loss, and you hit double down and people in the lobby see you doing that, people can grieve you by selling their boards if they don't have direction yet and force you to lose against them on your next combat, and you'll immediately cash out. So there's going to be people grieving this very hard. unless there's a way that they balance it where they're like they have to have either the equal amount of team members that you do or more. Like because people will grieve you. I've seen this in other sets where people are like, oh, you're playing this, and then they'll sell their board out. You end up fighting them at a bad RNG, and then you lose all your benefits. That's my only concern with this trade is on the 3. You might get grieved, and you'll just be throwing it out the window because you didn't hit anything really powerful.
Overall, it's not going to like reinvent the high risk genre, if you will, but it's a classic that worked out pretty well. So, all right, you want to talk about Wraith?
Sure. So you need a couple shadowy villains in any good anime, and that's Wraith. Your lowest health Wraith heals for a portion of the damage dealt by Wraiths and the Shadow Realm. And the Shadow Realm is a thing that every 5 seconds, a portal opens, and the Shadow Realm strikes the 3 closest enemies and deals a portion of the damage dealt by all Wraiths since the last trigger. So you'll get kind of a reliable cadence of nuke 3 people, nuke 3 people, nuke 3 people, and your front line and later your back line will be topped off the entire time.
Yeah. This one's cool if you can get it like, remember talking about the Cassante coming back to life and then Wraith healing him up as he's punching can get pretty cool. And then we have Supreme Cells. This is going to be an interesting one. I think if you're a player who really likes flexing, Supreme Cells is going to be played around a lot. Supreme Cells 2 is very good. What's going to happen is you play Supreme Cells 2, and whichever one dealt the most damage, so let's say you're playing Kaisa and Kennen, and you've itemized Kaisa, she's clearly doing more damage. She's your Supreme Cell. She gains damage amp and an execute, which is pretty nice. And then if you play 3, that same thing happens, but the damage amp goes up. And then if you play 4, you can actually have a second Supreme. So like if you want to play like Kaisa and Akali, you can get them both going and have them both be Supreme. But there's a bunch of really cool comps you can build around this. Internally, this has been one of the hardest ones to make work, but when you do, it's like feels very powerful. So for a lot of you high skill players, look into this trait.
Yes, cool. I'm out.
All right, and then we have Luchador. You can talk about Luchador.
All right, so Luchador might be one of our most whimsical traits because at 50% health, all Luchador's cleanse negative effects heal, run slightly away from combat, and then jump back into it and land on enemies, knocking up enemies in a 1 hex radius. They also all gain some AD. But when you play a bunch of Luchadors, you have a combat that has a lot of movement to it. It's got a lot of verticality to it. It's just really fun to watch these units do their thing.
Yeah, I think this is one that like you're gonna, if you're a trolly person, you're gonna love to play it, and you're gonna not necessarily enjoy fighting against it, but you know, it ups the value of Quicksilver a little bit. So what can we say? All right, and then comes my favorite, other than maybe the crew, Mentor. Mentor is a really fun one. So there are 4 mentors, these old sages, if you will, and adding one to your team will give your team a bonus. So if you're playing Yasuo, your team gets 12% attack speed. Great. If you're playing Ryze, your team gets 2 mana per attack. Great. And kind of like traits like this before, you can only play 1. So if you try to play Yasuo and Ryze, nothing happens. It gets canceled. You can only play 1. But if you play 4, instead of just giving your team all the bonuses, no. The mentors decide that it's their turn to kick ass. They're not here to teach anymore. They're here to kick ass. So they all get the bonuses. The team doesn't anymore. So your team loses 12% attack speed, but they all gain it. And their spells change to be even cooler. And when I say even cooler, they're pretty darn cool. Like I love Ryze. Goes from like a channeled water wave to like also with these water geysers that hit everybody. Udyr gets this like big ring of fire. So these guys become a lot more badass when you play them as 4 mentor. Plus, I think the 4 mentor comp is like another really flexible comp that you can play a lot around. So I really like this comp.
I'm with you there. Watching Kobuko like hit the ground and knock up the entire line of Earth until it hits the back line.
Yep.
It's very satisfying.
Nice. And there's our.
I think this set's going to be like very visually appealing. I've seen a little bit on YouTube of it. It's very colorful. The abilities look very like in your face. Like you can see it, like the detail is really, really high behind it. If you played set 12, think of like set 12, how colorful and like animated it was. We're going to get that same kind of vibe. So coming out of set 14 where it's like very like dull and just like, we're going to be going into a very fun set as far as like graphics and visuals. I'm excited for it.
Origins. Now, let's go over classes. And classes, there isn't a lot here, so I'm just going to kind of power through these. Generally, with classes, we're not looking to reinvent the wheel. These are just sort of, generally, they do their job. So, for example, Protector is back. It's been changed a little bit, but basically, they gain shields when they're low. Pretty simple. Sorcerer is our AP comp. This time, the twist is whenever an enemy dies after being damaged by a sorcerer, they deal a percentage of that enemy's max health to another enemy. So they do that sort of chain burst that they've done before, but otherwise it's a pretty solid AP comp. Executioner's back with its crit. Their abilities can critically strike, pretty standard. Prodigy, we'll talk more about this in a bit because you'll notice there's a new symbol here, which we'll talk about. But basically, Prodigy, your team gains mana regen. Prodigies gain more. So it's a lot like the mana regen traits from the past.
Invoker.
Anything to add here?
Nope.
Okay.
These are pretty simple.
Yep. Sniper, damage amp per hex the further they are away. Bastion, team gains some armor and MR. Bastions gain more. This is literally a reprint from the last set. Heavyweight's a little different. It's not Bruiser. The team gains health. It still has a lot of the Bruiser properties. But this time, some of their health gets converted into AD, so they can do damage. This really helps champions like Darius and Jace, so they can have some pretty high health fantasies. I know we've had some reroll Darius and Jace with 6 heavyweight can get pretty nutty. I guarantee you day 1 PBE, try it. They're going to be pretty strong. And then Juggernauts, they gain durability based on how low they are. That's another one of our tank traits. Anything to add?
Nothing to add here.
Okay. Finally, we have Duelist, gain attack speed. Good stuff. Edgelord, gain some Omnivamp and AD. And then Strategist is back. It's a little different than last set. This is the one where instead of it being like durability, they just gain a shield. I will say that makes Strategists a little bit weaker, but keep in mind the Strategists gain triple. So for example, if you have a Jarvan in the front line with 5 Strategists, a 1500 health shield, not so bad. 45% damage amp for something like a Rise. But this does apply to the whole team as well, so you get some of that extra benefit. So Strategist back as a flex trait. Cool.
I think the only things to add here are, yes, Volibear's an edgelord. Claws have edges. And also, while Strategist's shields does make it a little bit weaker than the one you might have in set 14, you do have a lot more utility and defensiveness with that 4-cost Jarvan stun and the 2-cost Janna who can shield allies.
Yep.
So it is actually a little bit better a group of units for just the team structure.
Agree. Cool. All right, well, now we've talked about the champs and the traits. Now we get to get into the real meat for all you turbo nerds here, and this is some of our mechanical changes, and there's some doozies. Actually, we forgot one more thing. Prismatic traits. Now, I talked about this in the learnings article. Oh. I talked about the prismatic traits in the learnings article that just came out today, actually. We're recording it the day that article came out. And generally, we haven't been happy with, like, it's 2-1, and you see somebody has an emblem or two. I know they're going to hit it in the end game. This feels bad. That's not really great. So we're taking a very different stab at prismatic traits this time. The way these work, and we'll use Star Guardian as an example here, is once you put the 8-piece in, the maximum of the trait that's the normal max, you're essentially given like a quest. So in the case of Star Guardian, it's spend 20,000 mana. If you can accomplish that quest, the trait will turn prismatic. And so it's pretty hard to activate these early, but somewhere around, 6.3, 6.5, if everything went well and you got the right items, then maybe you can pull them off. And so again, this is meant to make prismatics this thing that you chase and hopefully find the right opportunity, not something that you feel like you're guaranteed on 2-1 because you happen to get a golem and an emblem early. Now, it does make emblems a little less value for these, but you can activate the trait earlier to start your quest earlier for something like Star Guardian. Now, for something like Battle Academia, you'll notice that activating it earlier doesn't really help that much because what you kind of need is a lot of items. So, like I said, there is some give and take here, but it's a very different take on prismatic traits. You want to talk about the mech one here, by the way? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so we do have a couple other approaches. So we've got some that are quests. The mech one is kind of a weird quest. So this augment can be seen on 2-1 if you're playing Mighty Mech. And it's I'll be the legs. Makes the mech stronger and gives you some Mighty Mechs. And then if you field all 7 Mighty Mech champions, and reach level 9 and hit the other 2 Mighty Mech augments in this chain, you will unlock Prismatic Mighty Mech. So it's a little bit of like a assemble all the pieces of the incredibly powerful super weapon.
Yep.
So it gives you a fun thing to chase and be like, oh, I got the first one. Maybe this is the game. But unlike that emblem thing, you can't just hit this and go, oh, I can definitely hit the Prismatic this game.
Yeah, and the augments have trade-offs for sure. So, and there's a couple others here. We're not going to spoil them all, but generally the hope here is that Prismatics become this thing that you maybe sometimes find the opportunity to chase, but aren't always guaranteed. Let us know. The tuning might also not be right day one PBE. I know, like, the first time we implemented these, I think someone hit one at, like, 5-1, and we're like, oops, and we cranked the number up, you know? So give us feedback.
That Star Guardian one used to be less than half of what it is in this picture.
There was a playtest where it was 8,000, and it was like, nope, that ain't right. So let us know. I'm sure during PBE, the team will be tuning it and adjusting it. But again, these are meant to be pretty hard to hit. But once you hit Prismatics, cool things happen. They become very powerful. So, yeah.
But if you're a chase trait like myself with the summons, the thing I like about this, so there's all be the legs, all be the arms, and all be the head is what they're called. I like how they're actually giving you stats. So if you pick this on 2-1, and then you're like, I'm going to try to get all 3, and you don't get it, you're at least getting 25 armor and magic resist and 300 health. So your Mighty Mech is getting a bonus, and then if you get the arms as well, you'll probably get another stat bonus like this. And then if you don't get the head, at least your trait, like your summon, is stronger in one way or another. I think that's really cool. It's a design I've never seen before, and I'm excited to play it.
Cool. Okay, now let's talk about the deep, nerdy stuff. We are looking at roles revamped. Now,
here we go.
This is a big change that has been a long time coming to TFT. Now, the first thing you'll notice on a character inspect panel here, so we're looking at Caitlyn. First thing is there's a new mana regen trait on the mana bar here. You can see Caitlyn is gaining 2 mana per second. That's a new thing. Every character has it. In addition, you'll notice there is a role here. So Caitlyn is an attack caster being the important one. And we have 2 different AD properties here. Your basic attacks, which is 55 damage, and then your AD multiplier, so that now AD and AP work exactly the same. So when you have no items, you have 0 AD. What this means is that AD will multiply your base attack damage and your spell damage. The biggest changes from this is in the patch notes. Let's say you see Caitlyn's AD get lowered from 55 to 50. That's not hurting her spell. Her spell is a completely separate tunable number than her basic attacks. So we could have somebody whose basic attacks hit for 100, but the spell only hits for 200, right? Like, they're completely separate. But if you look at the spell here, it says fire a bullet at the farthest target enemy, dealing 370 physical damage. It's like very clearly the damage. It's not a percent multiplier anymore. It's not extra confusing. Cool. AD is AD, AP is AP, numbers are numbers. It's a lot cleaner. The roles part here, the caster, every champion has a different role. This dramatically affects how they generate mana. So, for example, Caitlyn as an attack caster, she gains 7 mana per attack, not 10, that's different, and generates 2 mana per second. So, this, for example, lowers the value of an auto attack build, but raises the value of something like Shojin comparatively, because going from 7 to 12 is a pretty big increase. And so we'll go over some of the examples, but this is like the core thing to look at with all the champions. And I know this is a lot, so bear with me. Sloan, anything to add on this slide?
Nothing other than that I love the quote, numbers are numbers.
Numbers are numbers. True. No more of these percents, right? It was weird that casters had this flat number, but AD users had a percent.
And I would always have to do the math and be like, is this good?
Yeah, exactly.
Or you look at the thing and it's 200, 200, 200, and it's like, does this spell scale? It does. Right. Now it will actually visibly scale.
Exactly. Okay. Now, as far as the roles go, right, we talked about caster. There are basically 6 roles. And this is important because one of the biggest changes here is that by default, champions do not generate mana when taking damage. This is huge. So, for example, if you're just doing like random backline splash damage, you always had to worry that like my static shiv is just giving them mana. That's gone. Champions do not generate mana from taking damage.
Very cool.
There's an exception. Tanks. Tanks they gain 5 mana per attack, and they gain mana from taking damage. They're the only class that does this. This solves a lot of problems. I'll try not to bore you with the details, but the short answer is, if they say tank, they generate mana from taking damage. In addition, they also, like, let's say you have a tank and a caster or a fighter on the front line, and right in between them on the other side is an enemy. If the enemy has a 50-50, they will always choose the tank over a non-tank. So this is actually going to lower the randomness in like the way fights begin and allow you to position melee champions near tanks so that the tanks draw aggro.
Oh, that's
There's
very
actually
cool.
some pretty cool positioning you'll be able to do with this. Sloan, anything to add about tanks before I keep going?
This set's gonna be wild.
Nothing about tanks.
Okay. The next role is fighters, and this is going to be a lot of your melee champions. Fighters gain 10 mana per attack and gain 10% Omnivamp. Now, why this is so big is this is something that, like I said, has been a long time coming for TFT. If you look at a champion like Darius, a Darius 3 in the past would essentially succeed by having like 2 Titans and a BT or something, and be so tanky that he would generate mana, cast, heal back to full, and then generate mana from taking damage. They kind of became drain tanks, was how melee champion worked. That's gone. You can't do that anymore. Darius only has 30 mana, but that means between casts, Darius has to auto 3 times. You can't drain tank with melee champions anymore. This is huge. Most of our melee champions now have higher attack speed and very low mana cost to make this true. Most of them, I think, are in the like 30 to 40 range. But it does mean the drain tanking melees are gone. And what it's made is like early melee champions are actually good now because they don't have to be tuned around their 3-star values where they would generate so much mana from having all that health and tankiness. Melee champions are the biggest benefactor of this, and they're going to be a lot different. This is going to change how you itemize them. This is a big deal. Cool. And then casters, we talked about briefly. Mana per attack, generate mana per second. Cool. Anything else on this slide, Sloan?
I was going to add some of the stuff you added to the end of fighters, and then you covered that very thoroughly, so no.
All right. Next up, we have assassins. Assassins are a lot like fighters, generally melee champions. This is stuff like Katarina, for example. I believe Yasuo is also an assassin.
Yep.
They don't get the Omnivamp, but they're less likely to be targeted. And what I mean by this is, again, anytime someone would have a 50-50, they will not pick the assassin. So you end up in these situations where sometimes if somebody has a choice between a tank and an assassin, they're going to pick the tank. It'll help assassins live a little longer, but they're not quite as durable as fighters. They don't have that Omnivamp. Finally, we have marksmen. These are pretty basic. They gain 10 mana per attack. That's how they've always worked. They like their attack speed. If anything feels the least different, it's going to be marksmen. So pretty straightforward. And then finally, we have specialists. This is if they usually don't have mana. For example, Kale and Jin. Jin has his own resource. Kale doesn't have one. This is just our catch-all for anything that doesn't follow the other buckets. So those are the roles. And again, the big things to note here are melee tanks aren't drain tanks anymore, or melee champions aren't drain tanks. No one gains mana from taking damage except tanks, and tanks can be used to eliminate positioning 50-50s. Those are kind of the big takeaways. Cool.
The other thing I'll add is we now, in addition to like the attack and magic roles, you will see the occasional hybrid role.
Yep.
This is just to tell you, this is a character that can build either one of these and be roughly equivalent. I believe in this set, Twisted Fate is a hybrid and Ezreal is a hybrid.
Yep.
It's not going to be a super common role, but it should let you know you can throw whatever items you want on these and be pretty confident they'll perform well.
Yeah, generally the attack, magic, or hybrid represents the items you should build, and then the marksman, assassin, specialist kind of thing represents the rules and how you should think about them. So, bit of a change here, but it is a big one. And like I said, I'm pretty excited because this has solved a melee problem that has been a problem for ever in TFT.
14 sets.
Yeah, so pretty happy with this. Now, With this comes some item changes. So first off,
I'm very interested by these changes because they said 16 is going to be a set that changes TFT forever. Like we'll never play TFT again after set 16, which is the set after this. And we're already moving into like some very intense changes. Like this is going to be like a pretty steep learning curve for a lot of people. It's going to be it's going to be a fun set probably from start to finish, and it's bringing in a lot of variables. I cannot wait to see where we go from here on next set. But right now, this set looks absolutely amazing. It's going to be a learning curve for sure. And I've played a lot of TFT.
we have a new stat called Mana Regen. Tear of the Goddess no longer grants flat mana. It grants Mana Regen. So you're going to see a bunch of changes related to that. But Tear of the Goddess is now a Mana Regen thing, very good on casters. You're going to expect that. Now, secondarily, this is something that when we talk about complexity bloat in our game, we just generally haven't been happy with support items. They're not that exciting. So in an effort to reduce some of the complexity of the game, support items are gone. We're getting rid of them. We're happy with Radiance and Artifacts. We're not that happy with support items. They're gone. So no more support items. Sad. Okay. Next up, there are basically 5 items that got pretty big reworks. Blue buff is now just the Mana Regen item. If you're a caster and you want Mana Regen, give a blue buff. This is going to take some relearning a little bit because now the like what's better, blue buff or Shojin, gets a little complicated. Blue buff's generally just good on like every caster, whereas Shojin kind of has some different purposes. If anything, I would say it's probably the most confusing thing about the item system, but the big thing to note is blue buff is a lot of Mana Regen. That's good. Cool. You want to talk about Giant Slayer and Adaptive Helm?
Yeah, so one of the cool things that roles let us do is hook into them for other mechanics to make the purposes of items clearer. So Giant Slayer used to have this weird thing where it was a health threshold, and if your opponent had a tank but it didn't have enough health because
Yeah,
it
that was
had been
brutal.
itemized with resists, maybe Giant Slayer wasn't going to do anything until they 2 or 3 started. Now we can just say, Giant Slayer, deal 15% bonus damage against tanks. And it's very clear when you read this item, this is to break tanks, and it's good at breaking tanks when they're 1-star, and it's good at breaking tanks when they're 3-star and fully itemized.
Yep.
So you don't have that weird warping thing of like, do I slam an early Giant Slayer for just the stats, even though I'm not getting the bonuses? If you want to get through tanks, you just build Giant Slayer.
Yep.
Similarly with Adaptive Helm, if you ever had a weird position where like for augments or something, you wanted to put a tank in the back line, it would get the wrong stats. Now it's just tanks and fighters, you gain defenses. Other roles, you gain offensive power. The one call out I'll make here is it says gain an additional 15% mana from all sources. This includes your mana regen, but it won't update in the mana regen thing. So if you put an Adaptive Helm on your unit and you don't see that 10 increase to 11 or 11.5, that's because Adaptive Helm is working, but it works after the stat, so it's kind of an invisible behind the scenes bonus mana.
Nice. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. This is like the first preview of what we can do hooking on to roles. We talked about how we were going to call it out earlier, by the way. This is a great time to talk about how Darius works. You want to talk about Darius real quick?
Oh, yes. So Darius has his classic slam the axe down, deal damage if I kill the target, reset. But it deals a really heavy amount of bonus damage against tanks. And this lets us make sure that Darius can get through a front line without going absolutely crazy the moment he gets to the assassins and the casters in the back line. So you will be able to really chunk tanks down.
Good.
But you won't carry that through and then one-shot everything else unless you have the exact right build.
Yeah, I believe the number last I checked, I mean, again, it could change, it's PBE or whatever, but it was like Darius deals 50% more damage to tanks. So
it might be up to 60.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, it's chunky. And so, like I said, the ability to latch in and do like specific role play is pretty cool here. So, pretty excited about that. 2 other items here, Titan's Resolve. We're just changing this a little bit so that at full stacks you gain immunity to crowd control. Since melee champions don't want the armor and MR quite as much anymore, this gives them something else that they do want. So if you put this on like your Viegos or your Dariuses, they should benefit from that pretty heavily. And then Protector's Vow, since the tier is no longer flat mana, we still wanted it to be the item that you would put on your Sejuanis or your Jarvans though. So now start of combat, you still gain that 20 mana, and then otherwise it kind of works the same. But yeah, that way it still has kind of the same purpose. It just fits the new mechanics. So cool.
I think the biggest swing and change for this one is Adaptive Helm. That was a very weird item and very niche in the last couple sets. I like how they're giving like the additional 15% mana from all sources. So say you're playing like a backline caster and they're doing whatever their base MR is and their base mana is with their attacks. You're getting a 15% bonus, a multiplier on that. If I'm reading that correctly, that's behind the scenes, you don't see it. It'll make it feel more impactful, whereas before it's just like every couple seconds you get more mana. And I like how like it definitely clarifies on your front tanks and fighters they'll do this. On your other rolls they'll do that. It was very weird item before. I think they kind of cleaned it up. I'm looking forward to playing that a little bit more in my builds because Adaptive Helm is not something you see often on current builds.
And then beyond that, there's a couple minor adjustments here. One thing to call out here is there's no such thing as a unique item anymore. So you can put 3 blue buffs on a champion if you want. Have fun. There's just no. It was a silly thing. It made the game less fun. There's just no unique items. We fixed that. But you can see here, Tear of the Goddess we talked about, Archangel Staff, that changes. Edge of Night is going to gain some attack speed, a little less armor, and gain its lifeline. Spear of Shojin becomes more mana regen, Hand of Justice, Hextech Gunblade, things like that. Morellonomicon is going to be focused on ability power and mana regen instead of attack speed. So this separates it from red buff. If you're a caster now, Morellonomicon should be much better than red buff because the attack speed's not benefiting you nearly as much. And then Nashor's Tooth is also more AP and mana regen as well. So generally this is all minor changes to make things that are supposed to be good on casters with mana regen, or just, changing how the tier works. So nothing crazy here. Couple others. Artifacts, same thing. Mana became mana regen. Most of it gets 2 mana. And there is one new artifact here, kind of a callback to the old blue buff that lowered your mana cost. Dawn Core is now a very similar version. Reduce the holder's max mana by 10. Subsequent spellcast reduce max mana by 10% to a minimum of 15. So this is like the artifact version of blue buff, much like we did with Ginsu's and why am I blanking on the name of it? The artifact. I can't think of it. It's an artifact though. It's good on Zerion Live.
Shiv.
Right? What's
Shiv.
that? No.
Shiv.
That's not
No.
Shiv. It's the other one. It's the one that looks like the spitting blades. What's that?
Dragon Slayer?
Flicker Blades?
Yes, Flicker Blade.
Blades.
Thank
Okay.
you. I'm so bad with names right now. I'm gone one day. But yeah, so much like Ginsu's and Flicker Blade, we have blue buff became Dawn Core. This is the cool artifact version. Good stuff. Cool. All right, now we talk about the set mechanic, because that was just Rolls Revamped, which is like a big system change. Sloan, why don't you talk about the set mechanic?
Sure. So every anime tournament needs its power-up moment. So our set mechanics is power-ups. You will get at 2 points in the game, really early on, and then towards the later half of stage 3, a power-up in the form of a power snacks. This is a consumable that you can drop on a champion to open an armory of power-ups, which you can select. And then selling that champion or using a power remover will remove it and give you back a power snacks, so you can choose a different champion or try to find a different power-up. These are all like ways to enhance that champion's abilities. They'll empower the spell, they'll give bonus stats, they'll give you scaling, they'll give you some weird atypical output. There's a lot to explore in the system. And each champion has a pool of options it can get, so you're pretty much guaranteed that no option will be completely dead. There might be some that are better for your position, but in general, if you pick this and you pick a thing that you're offered, it's going to be good on that champion.
Yep. So you can see here, for example, we have Lucian, and the 3 choices here offered here are Robo Ranger, Caretaker, and Bullet Hell. Now, you'll notice in this view, by the way, there's not a lot of details. If you press View Full, it'll switch to this view, and it will remember this after that. You don't have to press it again. I think most of you that watch this kind of content are engaged enough that you're going to want those numbers. So just press that button on your first playthrough and then don't worry about it ever again. Just something we're trying for a little bit more accessible view here. But the other thing to note here is these are the 3 choices that have shown up for Lucian. There are more than 3 choices. So I couldn't tell you exactly how many Lucian has.
I think Lucian has somewhere between 13 and 16 off the top of my head.
Okay. But not every champion shares the same options. We've went through every champion, and Sloan mentioned 13 to 16 that fit that champion well. So for example, if you see one that's like lower their mana by 50, well, we probably didn't put that on any champion that has 60 or less mana, like that's just not there. So there's probably going to be more detailed versions out there that show what champions can get what. If you don't like the 3 options you've got, you can use the fruit, remove it, and try again, but you only have a limited amount of those fruits. And so here's kind of the view here where you see the different things. Once you've applied it here, you can see here Lucian's got this like purple glow on him. And if you see him in the shop anymore, it'll show your powered up champion in the slot. You can see the power remover here. And like I said, you only get a limited amount of these, but you can use it on a champion to remove their power up, or you can just sell them. By the way, if you sell the Lucian, that covers it as well. And then it kind of fits in that same slot on the UI we've used before, where you can see here I chose Bullet Hell. Now he fires 35% more projectiles with abilities. So it's kind of like a neat twist on anomalies plus like power-ups, but the fact you get 2 of them, the fact you can move them around, it's a lot more advanced. There's a lot more exploring to do. Generally, you're going to find that you put one on like a tank and a damage dealer is generally the combo we see, but who knows? Strategies may evolve. So, yeah.
I'll also mention it shows up in the trait tracker at the top level. So it's a lot easier to scout. You don't have to scout, go, which unit do they have it on? Let me right-click that unit. Let me see.
That's cool.
It'll just show up in the trait. You can hover it and go, this person's playing Bullet Hell.
Yeah, which is really nice. So, cool. Anything else on the set mechanic? I mean, we're kind of glancing over it here, but this is a big deal because everyone's going to have one at the start of the game. Midway through, they get a second one. It affects things pretty dramatically. It's almost like a 4th item in some cases. Generally, the power level is about, 30% amplification to a champion, give or take. But it can definitely make 1 or 2 champions really the star of your show, really power up.
And you've got some variety in here. Some of them can do supportive things. We saw in that last one, Caretaker, where you can shield allies. You've got a lot of options here. I actually think this one's one that we can't dig into too much here, and you'll just need to dig into more yourself when you get to start exploring the set.
Yeah, I'm sure some of the websites might list like all the different options and things like that, but there are a lot of them, and like I said, each champion we've tailored picked which ones fit for them. So, and some of the champions have some specific ones just for them. Can you talk about one of the cool, like, because some of them have like 2 pieces also.
Yeah, so I'll talk about one that I think does all of that, which is fan service. It is available on Xayah and Rakan only. Xayah and Rakan normally do not share a trait, but if you have the fan service power up, your Xayah gets stronger based on the star level of your strongest Rakan, and your Rakan gets stronger based on the star level of your strongest Xayah. And it's a 2-piece. So if you use a power up on Rakan and you hit this, and you use a power up on Xayah and you hit this again, it'll make both of them even stronger.
Yep.
So occasionally you'll see ones where it's like, maybe rather than doing that normal tank carry thing, I'll try to fish for this 2-piece and see if I can get this cool chase option.
Yep. Yeah, so there's a lot of unique ones out there as well. So explore the power-ups. Let us know what you think. But I think it's a pretty cool version of this kind of mechanic. So, yeah. All right.
I think that the meta will be solved a little bit slower with that because there's so many varieties. I did a brief look online. I think there's like 50 to 60, if not more, of these things you can do. There's also unique ones that are like give you like a stacking stat, so like damage amp or something like that. There's very like few that do that, but you won't be able to take that off and put it on a different champion. Like it's gonna be unique to that champion. So I think it's gonna be really cool. It's gonna be harder to min max this right away. Like people are obviously gonna come up with what they think is gonna be the strongest, put that in the meta pages. But this is gonna be a lot of fun for people who just want to experiment and see what if they can push the boundaries of the game, which I like to do. My specialty is I like to play things that are wacky and make no sense. Like I did like 8 Nitro in the current set. That's not a thing. I like to push the boundaries of the game. Leduc is also very popular for doing this. If you haven't seen Leduc, go check him out. He'll be doing these justice. He'll go really crazy with these. Anyways, let's go back to the video.
Top 4 celebration. This is just a new little thing. You want to talk about this, Sloan?
Yeah. So one of the things that's been in TFT for a while is winning feels great. Getting first feels great. But in TFT, a win is anything that's 4th place and up. And it's often difficult to really notice that, really be like, oh, this is the time I hit top 4, especially if you're newer to the game and are like, oh, only a first place is a win. That's the only time I see victory. So we wanted to create a moment where you really know that, like, you've done it. Everything from here on is just how much better can I be? So now, when the 5th player is eliminated, you will get a short break for a top 4 ceremony. It only takes a couple seconds, but it shows you the top 4 players organized kind of however it wants. It's not by your current position because we don't know how the game's going to end, but it'll be a nice opportunity to be like, oh, cool, I did the thing. Now we're in the end game. I can take it from here. I know I'm getting my LP.
Yep. I've had so many games where it's like, your board position's bad. You kind of low rolled a bit, but you're like, oh, can I just squeeze out a top 4? So having this moment to breathe where I'll just be able to go, yes, I did it, and just
I
like
totally
be able to
agree.
walk away will feel really good, I think.
I totally agree
And
with
you
that.
get to put your tactician on display so everyone can see the cool river sprite you have.
True. Victor showing off his one here. That's just the best. Cool. All right, and lastly, let's close it out with augments, which is a lot of things. So first off, we have our list of removed augments
Starry
here.
Night's
I'm not going
gone.
to read them all off here. You guys have eyes. You can read the list. But these are the augments that are going away. They're not part of the game anymore. Some of them it's just to take a break. Some of them it's because they don't really fit the set well. Some of them it's because we're sick of, and they just haven't been great. So, Sloan, any on here that you're particularly glad to see go?
Subscription service?
Particularly glad.
Or
So
sad? Or sad, either way.
It's the same answer. I am happiest and saddest to see Trait Tracker go.
Yeah.
As a Chaos Gremlin, not knowing what I was going to get was delightful. But in this set, we have a lot more things that activate at 2-piece than usual, kind of an intentional decision, so you can do a lot of really cool comps.
Yep.
But Trait Tracker was just too easy to access, and we would have had to raise that number to something ridiculously unfun to make it work.
Yep.
So, farewell, Trait Tracker. I will miss you, and I'll be glad you're gone.
Yeah, I think from there, the only other one I'm kind of sad to see lose is subscription service. I liked the early forecast and some of the shenanigans you can
I'm going to
pull off
miss
with
Shop
that.
Glitch. Shop Glitch is amazing.
But maybe dual purpose. I liked dual purpose. That was another one I kind of liked. But yeah, otherwise, a lot of these time to take a break. So, and then we have some returning augments. These are augments from past sets that you've seen before. Some of them, I'm glad to see Power Up come back, although we had to rename it.
Double Trouble, let's go.
Power Up. But this is the one that raises the tier of your next augment by 1. So now it's called Augmented Power. I'm happy to see that one back. I'm also really happy to see Golden Egg back. I'm glad. I know we got rid of it because we had eggs in the last set, but Golden Egg on 4-2, it's always just so much fun on the stream, and it's fun to take. But here's a couple augments that have come back. Any others you want to call out?
I'm a Double Trouble fan. It
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
part of me that likes weird comps. And also, I'll do a special call out for underdogs. I feel like having underdogs in a tournament themed set is just so appropriate that even though it's never been my most favorite augment, I have to call out. It belongs here.
Underdogs is one of those ones that scares me because like there's gonna be some like heavyweight comp that's just like insane with it, but
Oh, you're right. I take it back. Underdogs, you're great.
Yeah. We'll see. So
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure Stars Are Born. It was like a Caitlyn unique thing from like 9.5. If you guys played that 9.5, I'm pretty sure you get like your first 1 cost and 2 costs that you buy are immediately 2-starred that you want, that usually show up in your shop. So if you're chasing a trait and you get like 2 of those traits that are like a 1 and a 2 cost, they'll both show up as 2 stars. And you only get, I think that's pretty much what that, if I remember correctly. That's a fun one too.
okay, and then of course we can't have a set without a bunch of new augments. Now I know we're blocking some of the text here. Sorry, this was the only way to get it there. There are probably better websites out there if you want to go read them all. I'm sure a lot of our great partners have the things out there, but I'm putting them on screen. Generally, we have our trait ones. This is generally the ones that pump up any specific traits and do cool things. Any you want to call out here, Sloan?
Yeah. So we got a lot of trait augments this time around, but 2 of my favorites from this page: Diamond Hands, which gives you increased gems from Crystal Gambit, and a bigger penalty when you lose, and says you can only cash out once. No more of that choosing to double down.
Yep.
You can just only cash out at 4/7 exactly. And the other one that I love here is Power Upload, which is you can give the Mighty Mech a power up. We don't normally let you itemize summons, and we definitely normally don't let you like throw them
Set
in the
mechanic
anomaly
them, yeah.
hex. So if you
That's kind
get
of
this,
cool.
you'll find the Mighty Mech has its own list of power-ups, and some of them are pretty cool.
Yeah, cool. Yep, so this is the first page, and then we've got a second page. You'll see at the top here we have the mech ones that we talked about here. That's part of the mech quest for the prismatic. Couple others here. Any other ones you want to call out?
Two very fun ones here. Tournament favorites turns Soul Fighter into a loot trait, where every time they deal damage, you gain fame, and once you hit certain breakpoints, you gain loot. So you really get to kind of crush the opposition and profit from it. And the strongest survive leads to some fun Supreme Cell stuff. It's whenever an ally dies, they grant the Supreme Cell who dealt the most damage this round 10% of their maximum health. So you can build up really beefy Supreme Cells units.
Yeah, I really like the Soul Surge one as well. As somebody who liked Conqueror a bunch in set 13, it kind of gives me that fantasy. So that'll be pretty fun. So cool. There you go. All right, and then we have other augments here. Now, the ones I want to talk about here is you're going to see this in all the levels, but we have Silver Destiny, and then there's a Gold Destiny and a Prismatic Destiny. And for those of you that are willing to take a chance, you can take these augments. You'll get a little bit of extra gold. So, for example, Silver augment on 2-1 and 2 gold. But then you don't get to pick your augment. It just gives you a random one. So you might get completely screwed. We expect there to be a lot of shenanigans with this, but I'm pretty excited for this one. Yeah. Any others on this page worth calling out?
No, but I'm taking that one 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah,
Me
it's going to
too.
get taken a lot, I think. We'll see.
I troll. I'm not gonna lie.
Gold, again, I know we're blocking some of it here, but I'll call out Golden Destiny, gain a random gold augment and 4 gold. It's like there are going to be people that are like, oh, that 4 gold's so worth it, and then they're going to get some random trait augment they didn't want, and it's going to be hilarious. We're going to love it. The other ones I want to call out here are the team spend a lot of time trying to make some anime references here. I won't read them all off here, but like Story of 7. Collect golden balls by defeating players in combat. Collect all 7 for a reward, then restart the quest with more powerful rewards. Oh, chef's kiss. Like, there's just... You can read the list here. There's some really good ones.
I love aura farming, where you gain a random 2-star 5 cost with 2 items, and it cannot be sold or fielded until 4/5.
Yeah, this one's really
just
fun.
There.
I took this one in a playtest once, and I got a Lee Sin with like Bloodthirster and Titans, I think it was. And it's like, okay, well, I know I can play around Lee Sin now, but I'm down a gold augment until 4/5. Like,
See, I wish that had happened, because when I took this, I got Zyra, and as we were talking about, she's in
Pocket recombulator. Gain a consumable that transforms a 1 or 2 cost unit into one of a higher cost. They keep their star level.
incredibly
Oh boy, that's gonna be
Yeah.
nice.
So I was sitting there going, I picked this for direction, and you gave me nothing.
no direction. Yeah. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So, yeah, there's some good ones here. Pocket Recombobulator is a really interesting one. So, like I said, a lot of cool new augments to play with here. And then we go to our Prismatic page, and yes, there's a Prismatic Destiny. We didn't do Prismatic Destiny at like 3-2 and 4-2. That felt a little too over the top, but here's a couple other ones. I'm sure there's at least one you want to talk about here.
I want to call out 2.
Okay.
Protagonist is wild. You gain a random 1-cost champion augment, a 2-star copy of that champion and a component, and then a copy every round. So you just opt into a hero augment that you don't get to choose. And also, Isekai.
That's really cool.
You get a special 2-star champion from another universe, and it has a special trait this game.
What?
I'm going to leave it open to a surprise. It is always the same champion, but the team did a really good job making this a delightful experience when it arrives. It's fun to field. You get to field it as a bonus champion. I think this is going to be a popular augment, even if it's not good, just for how unusual and delightful it is.
Yeah, Protagonist is pretty cool in that, you know, a lot of people don't get to play with the hero augments because they're silver. But the fact that this gives you that hero augment and you get the guaranteed 3-star copy, because it keeps giving you another copy after every turn. And so you can even get to the 4-star version if you save up. So getting the 4-star version of the hero augment is pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Sure. The other one I'll call out here, which I think is wild. I'm still a little shocked we shipped this. We'll see if it lasts. 9 lives seems bonkers to me. You have 9 HP. Losses only deal 1 HP. Gain loot on each loss. This one's bonkers to me. I am very excited to see how this one plays out. So yeah,
That's wild.
That'll be cool. It's like a very interesting cruel pact. So, and you get carousel priority because you're only at 9 HP. So
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Or are you at 9 of 9?
no,
I
you're
don't
at
actually
9.
know how it filters.
It,
Okay.
it puts you on the scoreboard at 9, so you get carousel priority. So it's pretty interesting. So, all right. Finally, some hero augments. There's a good amount of them. Pretty standard stuff. The 1 costs are silver. Garen, Zac, Ken, and Malphite.
Hey, Garen's
The 2
back.
costs, and I think there's a 3 cost here, but they're all gold.
Oh, there's 2. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's Vide, Mundo, and Shen are the 2 costs, and then Udyr and Nico are the 3 costs. So definitely a good amount here. I at least have to call out Mundo. I think Mundo is
Ranged
probably one of the
marksman.
more wild ones we've made. Give him the chair. You gain a Dr. Mungo, and Mundo becomes a ranged marksman who now throws axes that do more damage but cost health. This is a bonkers one. Any you want to call out?
Zac, the other bonkers one. So
Oh,
gain a
yeah.
Zac.
Oh, yeah,
Your
yeah, yeah.
strongest Zac becomes a specialist. He bounces around the battlefield, dealing damage in a 1 hex radius. So he no longer attacks. He just sails elegantly from enemy to enemy, dealing damage when he lands. And every
that's
time
really
he
cool.
casts his spell, as he gains mana over time, it says the next bounce will deal more damage. So there are few things as terrifying early on in set 15 as seeing this giant ball of Zac floating delicately towards your backline carry with its mana bar full.
Yeah, that's a fun one. That's a really cool, because we basically just used his taunt, right? It's like one of his taunts where he turns into the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just spins and
It
bounces.
floats. Yeah. That was a really creative one.
Malphite's fun too. Your Malphite just goes from punching things to ulting.
Oh yeah.
Malphite ult is always satisfying.
That's true. That's true. I think you're right. The Zac was a good call out though. The floating Zac, that's another really good fun one. So cool. And there you go. That is everything we had to cover. I'm sure there's a lot more details we could dig into, but this should give you a bit of a warm up as you head into PBE and check out the set. There's a lot of fun things to explore between the power ups, between melee champions not gaining mana anymore, between everything else. So I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited to play this set. Cool.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what people cook up with it. We've seen some really fun power-up combinations in internal playtests. I want to see what happens when this hits PBE. So please show me the cool things you build. Do something absolutely wild. Artifacts and power-ups are hilarious to mix together. And just have fun. Thank you for having me.
Sweet. Sloan, thank you so much for joining me. Hope you enjoy, and I hope everyone playing your set makes you smile in the way I'm sure it does.
Already just seeing it has already done that, and when it's on PBE, it's just going to be a delight.
Sweet.
So thank you to all the players, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, to wrap this up, any shout outs you want to do to the team that helped you build this?
Man,
I know there's a lot of people, but
right, it's going to start with the designers who worked with me. So Alex and Milo and Giovanni and everyone else who helped. Thank you so much. Engineers, you guys have been great. Art, I don't know how you delivered this much in one set, Art, but you did, and it's amazing.
We didn't even talk about the filter, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I mean,
there's a unique anime shader on every character in the set.
Yeah.
Art went absolutely crazy. Every armory looks cool.
Yeah.
And by now you've seen some of the cool stuff the marketing team has done, and I was injecting that as just hype the entire set. Just watching that, seeing what they've been doing. Everyone involved, if you worked on set 15, thank you so much. We have something fun here, and I'm excited to give it over to players.
Nice.
Awesome. All right, that being said, guys, if you made it to this point in the video, you are a real TFT fan, and I appreciate you guys watching my channel, and I'm super excited for this now. This is my first time watching this. If you are still here, drop a comment below of what you're most excited for the next set, what you think about it right now, your first impressions, if you think there's going to be anything that might be a learning curve. And if you have anything nice to say about set 14, you can drop that in there as well, but I don't expect to read too many of those. At any rate, everyone have a great day. Don't forget, PB is free for everybody. If you didn't play PBE in the past, you can sign up on Riot's webpage. You just have to make a different PBE account. And then in your header in the client, you'll be able to select instead of play, you can click on the right there. You'll bring up playtest PBE. So you can jump in there if you want to get some early experience. The only downside of that is there will be a lot of downtime where they're gonna just like shut the game down. You might be in the middle of a game, they're gonna crash it, and you're just gonna have to be done with your game because they want to do hot fixes. Lots of stats will change, units will be adjusted. So what we see in the PBE is never what goes live. But if you want to play around, mess around, have fun, get your head around the units, definitely sign up. It is free for everybody. You won't be missing out. Anyways, like and subscribe for more content like this. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.